right, so we call this, as you know, Did You Know? Did you see these stories? Some of them are political tonight, but I think they're important that we talk about them. There's just stories that are interesting. They deserve quick commentary, or they come with a cool video, something like that. And we'll start out with the first story, and that is another loyal Trump supporter gets eaten up by the Trump loyalty machine. Mike says it's 1:35 a.m. where he's at, so a little bit later for you. We've talked about this in the past, that when you put your faith and trust in a man who has no moral fiber, he's going to continue to push the line. And eventually that line is going to be pushed to where even you can't stand for it. Even though you're compromising your principles, you think there's a point where it's going to stop. But it doesn't, and it never did with President Trump. We saw that with Mike Pence, perhaps the most loyal person to ever work with President Trump. But when Mike Pence had to stand on the Constitution and for the Constitution, what happened to all that loyalty? No. Somebody like this with no moral fiber, when you finally draw the line and say it's time, it's been enough, President Trump doesn't say, well, let's agree to disagree on this one. No, he will chew you up and spit you out in the ugliest, most hateful way possible. That's why when you have somebody who's pushing your boundaries, you stop when they first do it. You draw the line at your first principles. You don't make excuses and say, oh, well, on this, oh, I'll make an exception here. Because there is no end game. They will keep pushing the line. And the person who is now getting chewed up is Mitch McConnell. And I can feel bad for the guy. Mitch McConnell carried Trump's water. Got him those Supreme Court nominations. But he couldn't stand the president giving rise to the insurrection. So he spoke out about it. He still voted not to impeach. But he had the nerve to go out and say that what the president did was wrong. So in a 600-word statement, Mr. Trump called the Kentucky senator dour, sullen, and unsmiling political hack. Now, how many of you, when you first heard this, knew that it wasn't written by President Trump? Have you ever heard the president use words like dour or sullen or unsmiling? This was not written by President Trump. But now the president has warned Republican senators they will not win again if they stick with Mr. McConnell. This is what happens when you give loyalty to somebody without principles. There will not come a moment when they say, I respect your principles. No. Your loyalty will never be repaid unless you are willing to go all the way. And that's what happens. So that's the first did you know. The second did you know is a man who wanted a way to ride his bike across the ice. So he has a brilliant idea. I know what I'll do. I'll attach saw blades to my bike. And here's how that went. Look at those saw blades. They're huge. And they look kind of dangerous. And they don't work very well. So if you're listening on a podcast and you can't see the video, these saw blades are the size of regular mountain bike wheels. They have the same grooves cut into it like a saw blade. And he gets on the ice, and magically, what does the saw blade decide to do? It decides to cut into the ice instead of ride over the top of it. So he decides to put little like pole things in the grooves of the saw blade to keep the saw blade from sinking down. And this is how that goes. Now let's see if it works. Oh, look at that. It works. So those little, I don't know what you'd call them, those little steps in the saw blade made it so he could now ride the bike across the lake. And he looks so happy. Did he ever consider... I just have this image of him falling off of the bike and landing on the saw blades. This is, to me, what social media does. You want to make a cool video, so I'm going to make saw blade wheels and drive across the lake. This is in Florida. A restaurant is going viral, and in my opinion, they're going viral for all the wrong reasons. This is a sign that you can see on their window. It says, "Face diapers not required. Everyone is welcome." This is Becky Jack's Food Shack in Hernando County, Florida. And it says, "Happy Valentine's Day, and a friendly reminder that we do not require face masks." Don't you love it when people make light of something that is going through our society, killing hundreds of thousands of people? It just makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside when they do that. And then speaking of doing the right thing, this is in Pennsylvania. The GOP in Pennsylvania is very angry at their at their senator who voted for impeachment. And this was a clip that stood out to me. This is Washington County GOP Chairman Dave Ball, who explained what he doesn't want from their senator.
No longer represents them.
We did not send him there to vote his conscience. We did not send him there to do the right thing or whatever he said.
Did you catch that? We didn't send him to Washington to vote his conscience, and we didn't send him to Washington to do the right thing. Listen one more time.
No longer represents them.
We did not send him there to vote his conscience. We did not send him there to do the right thing or whatever he said.
Yeah, whatever you do, don't do the right thing or vote your conscience. We sent him there, I guess, to be 100% loyal to Trump. Or this could be that we sent him there to vote the way the constituents want him to vote. And you know, if you listen to this broadcast enough, that I do not believe that it is the job of an elected official to vote the way their constituents want them to vote. I think it's their job to go and to find out all the facts and do the time and research that the regular individuals can't do, and then to vote their conscience and do the right thing, and then go back to their constituents and explain why they did it. If your job as a representative is to just vote the way your constituents will vote, well, that's a pure democracy. That's not a representative form of government. And if that's what we need, let's just put an app on everybody's phones and we'll all just vote straight up or down and run this country like a true, pure democracy. But no, we don't want him to do the right thing.
No longer represents them.
We did not send him there to vote his conscience. We did not send him there to do the right thing or whatever he said.
Did not send him there to do the right thing. Well, at least they're saying it. Just right out saying it. And with that in mind, let's see, who said this? This is the Department of Homeland Security has published a statement saying that Donald Trump supporters are allegedly planning a second attack on the U.S. Capitol on the 4th of March. Many of you have heard the QAnon conspiracy that on the 4th of March, that the president will, for some reason, be reinstated as the president and will be sworn in on some other grand conspiracy. So March 4th, another day to watch out for. And then moving on to the weather, we started out this podcast talking about the crazy weather that's going on across the country, specifically talking about Texas, how they've been affected with power outages and then pipes bursting and all kinds of problems. This is video that was filmed in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, and it caught my eye because it's basically a fireball traveling down the electrical lines. Check this out. Oh, wait a minute. Let me find it because I don't think I loaded it up correctly. But we can remedy that here. Let's see. Here we go.
Power Boulevard was without power Monday after a transformer failed nearby.
And you could hear this. It almost sounded like a tornado, like, woo, you know.
Christopher Fitzmaurice was working in the area and went outside to see what was happening. Not believing what he saw, he got his phone and pressed record.
I guess my wife actually said it the best. It was like a road runner running from a lightning strike or something, you know? And it was crazy. I've never seen anything. I've seen transformers blow up, I've seen them catch on fire, I've seen electrical lines do that.
Others also caught the chaos on camera, which caused bushes to catch fire and traffic lights to fall off their stands. It also left about 10,000 customers without power for hours. And with temperatures falling, people had to find alternative ways to stay warm.
If you're listening on the podcast, it literally is just a fireball traveling down the power lines. You need to log into Facebook and watch the video in this podcast tomorrow to see it. It's just wild. It cannot be safe. And let's see, Brett says, wow, that's incredible video. I know. Absolutely incredible. In fact, we should watch it one more time. Shouldn't we?
Power Boulevard was without power Monday after a transformer failed nearby.
And you could hear this. It almost sounded like a tornado, like, woo, you know.
Christopher Fitzmaurice was working in the area and went outside to see what was happening.
Looks like a
Not
ghost.
believing what he saw, he got his phone and pressed record.
I guess my wife actually said it the best. It was like a road runner running from a lightning strike or something, you know. And it was crazy. I've never seen anything. I've seen transformers blow up, I've seen them catch on fire, I've never seen electrical lines do that.
Others also caught the chaos on camera, which caused bushes to catch fire and traffic lights to fall off their stands. It also left about 10,000 customers without power for hours. And with temperatures falling, people had to find alternative ways to stay warm.
So that is just crazy. And then if you're on social media at all, I'm sure you've seen all of the videos from the damage that is happening in the state of Texas, from pipes bursting and people experiencing their homes flooding. This is just one of them that caught my eye. This is somebody filming, and you'll see, again, if you're on the podcast, I apologize, but the camera will go up and you'll see icicles all along the wall, and then it pans up to the ceiling fan, and you see these long icicles hanging down from the ceiling fan. So just the wall covered in ice. And the ceiling fan still turning with icicles streaming down from the ceiling fan. I've seen so many videos of water damage in Texas, and these people are freezing to death because they don't have electricity, and then their pipes are bursting. And I saw one one plumber said he got over 2,200 calls in a span of about half an hour. Just crazy things going on there in the state of Texas. That's all I had planned for you when it comes to Did You Know? There is a conversation going on in our comments about the reliability of Breitbart News because of this post from Mike. Did you know that the Utah resident John Sullivan was paid $35,000 from CNN and $35,000 from NBC for the footage of him pushing for violence at the riot? The same John Sullivan that was involved in the Provo BLM protests where a motorist was shot. I saw the story of the guy who sold the video for $35,000. I did not see him linked to a BLM protest. And I would caution you, like many of the other people who are cautioning you, to be careful with Breitbart. But I'll look at the other sources that you have posted here on the comments. Steve Blake says Steve Bannon has not been convicted of fraud. Bannon has not been convicted because he was pardoned. So that kind of makes it hard. But I would be very careful with Breitbart News. In fact, not careful. I would stay away from him. I don't. If you have any concern whatsoever about fake news or bias media, the last place on earth I would go is Breitbart News. Just like Newsmax. You're not going to get. If you want something that just caters to your own viewpoints and philosophies and you never get challenged, well, yeah, you can go there. Let's see. Mike says he runs Insurgents USA. This is that John Sullivan guy. Judge ordered him to depart from the org he founded. We can dive into that. But anybody who is selling the idea, and I don't know if you are, that the insurgency was planned or executed by Antifa, BLM, or folks on that side. There's just nothing to support that. And not only that, the insurgents are angry about the allegation. They do not want to be called Antifa. This was a planned attack executed by Proud Boys and other hardcore MAGA supporters. And people who are trying to downplay it as something else, they're selling something. Now, I think it's important to note that the vast majority of people in Washington, D.C. that day supporting President Trump were not violent. They did not try and break into the Capitol. They were peaceful. But those people who did break into the Capitol, we know who they are. We know their backgrounds. We know their history. We know them. And they are being charged. Brett says, it does look like they paid for the footage. I just don't think there's much to read into that. Yeah. The media paying for footage is nothing new. That happens all the time. But again, anyone who's selling the idea that this was not the very people that we saw in video, the people who are known on social media, the Proud Boys and all of those other people who carried out the attack on our Capitol, who planned it well in advance. That's what the evidence shows. So I don't know if you're selling something different, if that's the implication or not. But we've dealt with that pretty extensively here on this podcast. So with that, it's coming up on midnight my time. I don't really have anything else that I had planned on sharing with you. If you have any questions or comments or things you'd like to share, we can certainly do that. Blake says, I read all sides, but I'm conservative. I share viewpoints with conservatives, so I'm not going to spend too much time reading 1619 Project promoting woke supporting leftists at CNN and Huffington Post. So this is the conversation kind of going on with the conversation within the show that's happening. Any other things that you guys wanted to bring up? I'll tell you some things that are on my agenda coming up, probably early next week. I've been watching and researching the transgender athletics bill working its way through the state of Utah. Spencer Cox today saying he's not going to sign it in its current form. There's an important discussion to be had there. Brett says, great to hear you tonight, Jay. Thanks for getting on. Keep up the good fight. Thank you, Brett. Thank you. It's great to hear from you. I hope things are going well. I apologize for the late night broadcast, but on my current schedule, I just have to do it when I can do it. And you can help me out if you want by scanning that QR code, that flow code that you see on the screen, that big circle, and becoming a patron of this podcast. Make a one-time donation or a monthly donation and help me bring this content to you every single day. I would love to be able to do that more often. And so your donation will help me pay the cost. Some of you mentioned the quality of this broadcast, the camera and things like that, the streaming, the fact that we're streaming to 10 different platforms right now. It all has an expense associated with it. And so you can help me cover that expense if you feel that I'm bringing you a product that is worthy. And if you can't donate, then just please take a minute and like and share everything that you see. Help me spread the word and help us grow this podcast on a regular basis. With that, my friends, I think that's all I have tonight. Have a wonderful Aloha Friday, and I will catch up with you very soon. Have a wonderful night.